The world outside, what was left of it, had gone silent. I clicked off the main view screen, the one showing the swirling gray-brown mess that used to be a sky. Here, in the bunker, it was day 43. 43 days of perfect air, perfect temperature, perfect data. I walked over to the environmental console, a clean stretch of brushed steel and holographic displays. The external temperature sensor, a small readout tucked away in the corner, flashed a steady 72 degrees F. I frowned a little. Then I looked at the other main monitor, the one that linked directly to the main surface camera feed, the one I had just turned off. It had been showing a blizzard, a really bad one. Snow so thick it looked like an unbroken wall of white static. A minor glitch, I muttered to myself. Sometimes, honestly, the integrated weather system just needed recalibrating. Nothing major. I tapped a few commands, ran a quick diagnostic. A green OK blinked back. See? Just a synchronization issue. I stretched, leaned back in the ergonomic chair. This place, my bunker, was everything I had planned, everything I had built. It was safe. I was safe. And I was right. Later that afternoon, I was walking down Corridor Gamma, the long, sterile stretch leading to the hydroponics bay. The hum of the air filtration system was a constant companion, a low, steady thrum against the polished walls. It was always there, barely noticeable. But then, as I passed a ventilation shaft, I felt it. A sudden, sharp breath of cold air, chilling my exposed arm. Just for a second. The temperature inside the bunker was always a precise 68 degrees F. Always. I stopped, pulled my sleeve back up, checked the small thermal sensor on my wrist. Still 68 degrees. The reading didn't even flicker. And the fan hum, it didn't sound right. It seemed to stretch, thin out, into a high-pitched, drawn-out whine, like a single note played on a bowed, rusting string. My ears started to ring, a faint, high-frequency buzz that seemed to press in from all directions. The air, I don't know, it felt thick, substantial around me, heavy with something. I shook my head, walked on. Just air circulation, I thought, and my ears, they must be ringing. Probably from the slight pressure changes when the system cycles. Yeah, that's it. I just need some rest. I went back to checking circuits and running diagnostics, a manual override of the automated systems. Hours I spent confirming everything was perfect, just perfect. I even updated my personal log, a little note about the unwavering stability of my sanctuary, how utterly in control I was. A feeling settled over me, a sort of quiet certainty that only I truly understood how delicate balance could be maintained. That evening, I was eating dinner in the main communal area. Standard fare. Protein paste, nutrient-rich algae crackers, a glass of recycled water that tasted perfectly clean. On the large wall-mounted screen, I was playing back old news feeds, the ones from the last few days before everything went dark. Reports of rising sea levels, economic collapse, riots. The world was crumbling, and I was here, safe. Then the screen flickered. Hard, like a bad cable connection, but worse. A cascade of static, a violent blizzard of white and black. For a split second, though, in the chaos, there was something else. A shape. Blurred, distorted, but it was a face. Staring. Directly at me, as far as I could tell. It was gone as quickly as it came, swallowed by the static. My chair scraped back as I shot to my feet. My water glass tipped over, spilling its clear contents silently across the sealed table. My heart, it felt like it jumped right into my throat. I stood there for a moment, just breathing,
trying to get my bearings. "What the hell?" I whispered, my voice rough. I walked directly to the screen, hit the power button. Nothing. The screen went black, a smooth obsidian mirror reflecting my own pale, wide-eyed face. But then, in the reflection, just for a moment, I could swear I saw it. The blurred, distorted face from the news feed, standing right behind me. I spun around. There was nothing. Just the cool, clean lines of the bunker, the immaculate wall panels, white, empty. I looked back at the screen, at my reflection again. From the corner of my eye, my own shadow, cast by the overhead lights, seemed to shimmer. It wasn't quite following the normal rules of perspective. It looked like, it felt like, it elongated, stretched.
A dark, wavering smear that drifted slightly to the left, away from my actual body, towards the corner of the room, before snapping back. It was fast, too fast. "Nothing there," I mumbled, my voice sounding distant, like it wasn't my own. Just bad light reflection, a trick of the eye. Yeah, that's it, just a trick. I walked away from the screen, wiping the spilled water. My hands trembled a little. Fine, just a bad connection, that's all. After all this time alone, maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I pulled out my personal tablet, went straight to the system logs. If there was a glitch, the system would log it. I scrolled through the data, row after row of sensor readings, energy outputs, atmospheric pressure. And then I saw it. A single line, stark against the green scrolling text. Access_request_denied_from external source. 20.34.07. I remembered the time. I remembered my water glass tipping over. 20.34.07. Exactly. "Who the hell?" I whispered, pressing my thumb against the cool glass of the tablet. My bunker was sealed. Completely. Physically, digitally. There was no external source. The world outside, it was gone, buried. "A serious software bug," I concluded, tapping the screen again. But the conclusion felt hollow, brittle. There was a knot in my stomach, distinct now, colder than any simple fatigue. It wasn't just being tired anymore. The next morning, I found a tablet, just lying there on the small table next to the hydroponics control console. Not mine, or I didn't recognize it. It was an older model, a little thicker than my sleek, newer interface devices, and it wasn't connected to the main bunker network. I picked it up. It felt heavy, cold in my palm. The battery was full. I touched the screen. It glowed to life, showing a single, almost crudely designed app icon. It just said, "Bunker Journal." Wait, journal? I had my own, the one I'd been keeping since before the collapse. This wasn't it. Not my interface, not my code. My stomach churned, a sudden unpleasant sensation. I tapped it. The screen opened to a text interface. The first entry was handwritten, a shaky, urgent script. Day 1. The world fell, but I was right. I read it. My breath hitched. The phrasing, the sentiment, it sounded exactly like me. Exactly what I would have written on that first day. I read on, my eyes scanning the foreign yet disturbingly familiar words. Sometimes I feel something else here. Something looking from the inside. I looked up from the tablet, my head slowly turning, scanning the hydroponics bay. The artificial sunlight hummed, the nutrient solution trickled. The plants grew in neat rows, green and vibrant. Everything was in order, always in order.
but a cold, creeping sensation, like spider silk, brushed my spine. My skin felt clammy. This was my device. I was sure it was my device. It looked vaguely familiar, the model. And what about those words? I didn't remember writing them, not a single one of them. This wasn't a glitch. This was a record of memories I didn't have. Or did I? The uncertainty, it started to itch. It got under my skin. The steady hum of the bunker, the one that had always brought me comfort, now seemed to press in, a dull, resonant throb against my eardrums. I started manual checks. Every conduit, every pipe, every sealed seam. I installed auxiliary high-resolution cameras, motion sensors, hidden in every blind spot I could find. Was it a leak? A structural fault? Or had something gotten in? Something I hadn't accounted for? The whispers from the fan in the living area now seemed almost constant, a low, guttural murmur that was just beyond comprehension, like words heard through thick glass. Sometimes, on the gym screen, a flick of static, and the distorted face would flash again. And the smell, a faint, persistent scent of damp earth, of something decaying, would waft through the sleeping quarters, even though the air filters were running at maximum efficiency, and I cleaned the area meticulously every single day. I couldn't sleep. Not really. Every shadow seemed to shift. Every silence stretched thin, taut, ready to snap. One night, or maybe it was day, I honestly can't tell the difference anymore. I sat in the control room, reviewing the footage from the new cameras, specifically the one for the main corridor leading from my sleeping quarters to the central hub.
I had set it to record constantly, to track every pixel. I found the segment from a few hours earlier. It was me, wearing my gray bunker jumpsuit, walking away from the camera, heading towards the hydro bay. My back to the lens. I didn't look back. I never did. I paused the footage, played it back, slow motion, frame by frame. I watched myself walk, my posture stiff, determined. And then, as I reached the very edge of the frame, just as my body began to disappear from view, my shadow, on the floor. It separated. Not cleanly, not like a trick of the light, but subtly. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor, a ripple that traveled down my legs and into the black shape on the floor. And when my body was completely out of frame, the shadow, it lingered. It stopped. It detached itself completely, a blot of darkness, pure outline against the polished floor. It tilted its head. Yes, a slight, almost curious tilt. Then, quick as a blink, it spread, became thinner, like a patch of liquid ink, and melded itself back into the dark seam where the wall met the floor. My breath caught in my throat. I rewound, again and again, dozens of times. I scrubbed the footage, pixel by pixel. There was no fault, no glitch, no light anomaly. It was clear. My shadow. It had an existence, an independent consciousness. It had acted on its own. It had looked. Impossible, I whispered, or tried to. My voice cracked, raw. The sound itself felt alien. No way, it's not possible. My eyes dropped to my own feet, under the control desk. My shadow lay there, perfectly still, perfectly flat, an extension of my body, a normal shadow. But then, as I watched it, it happened again. A subtle tremor, a shiver, like a dark pool of water briefly disturbed, before settling back into its obedient stillness.
A cold dread, heavier and more real than anything I'd ever experienced on the surface, settled deep in my core. This wasn't a bug. This wasn't fatigue. This was something else. I felt it then, the deep, gnawing unease, a constant shivering that ran just underneath my skin. My sanctuary, my perfect machine. It wasn't a victory anymore. It was a weight, pressing down. The isolation, the quiet, they were no longer comforting. They were part of this new weight. Later, I was finally trying to sleep. My eyes were burning, but my body refused to shut down. I reached out, almost unconsciously, to the small monitoring screen beside my bed. It was linked to the network, a personal portal into the bunker's vital signs. It was still playing the corridor footage, the same segment. My shadow. And now, as I watched it, the shadow didn't just tilt its head. As it detached, as it drifted along the wall where I had disappeared, it stretched, became impossibly long, thin, like a black stain that had come alive, running along the wall next to the door. And as it passed the threshold of my own sleeping quarters, it paused. It turned back. A vague, formless shape, like a deep, cold void, without eyes, without features, just an absence. But it looked directly at me. The pale blue light from the screen cast long, sharp shadows across my room, making familiar objects look alien, threatening. The screen clicked off automatically. I lay there, absolutely still, listening to the pounding in my chest. A cold, crawling sensation went straight up my spine, as if a thread of that ink-like shadow had just passed through the room and stopped beside my head. I wondered, how long had that shadow been doing things like that? And how long had it been watching me, when I had no idea? What exactly was truly hiding in my sanctuary? The light in the communications hub was always a sterile blue-white. I'd spent countless hours here, perfecting the satellite array, building the redundancy. Day 44, or was it 45? The days just bled together now, a monotonous loop in this perfect, sealed world. My perfect world. I slumped forward a bit, trying to focus. My eyes burned. Sleep hadn't really come for a long time. I slid my hand across the console, feeling the cool, smooth surface under my fingertips. I pressed the override for the long-range comms, the one that linked to the last functional off-world satellite. It was stupid, I knew. There was no one out there. The world was gone. But some part of me, a small, stubborn part, still wanted to make contact. Just to hear something. Anything. I heard the familiar series of insistent beeps.
A connection ping. My breath hitched. For a second, a stupid, idiotic second, a flicker of something, hope? Then the static washed in, a low hiss, like 1,000 insects writhing in a tight space, and through it, a voice. It was broken, jagged around the edges, like a recording played on a decaying tape. It sounded like a machine struggling with unfamiliar sounds. A single word first. Julian. My hand froze on the console. My chest felt tight. Then, after a pause filled with more static, another sound, trying to form a word. A guttural scrape, a wet click. You. It repeated, straining. You. My heart was pounding, thrumming in my ears. This wasn't a signal from outside. It couldn't be. You were. The voice choked, spluttered, like an old engine failing to turn over. It was trying so hard, though. And the sound?
It was distorted, yes, but it didn't sound like a distant, dying radio signal. It sounded close, inside the speaker, inside the wall, inside my head almost. You were right. The last word, right, came out as a long, drawn-out groan, scraping against itself. And then it repeated, right, right, right. A broken loop of sound, struggling for coherence, trying to form each syllable with a raw, nascent effort, like something learning to speak, one agonizing syllable at a time. It was the same phrase, exactly the tone, the feeling I had when I first sealed myself in here. My chest felt hollow. No, I mumbled, my voice rough, my throat dry. No, the system is just completely fried. I slammed my palm down on the frequency dial, twisting it hard. The broken voice, the agonized right, right, twisted with the dial, rising and falling in pitch, but never quite disappearing. It was clinging to the sound, to the idea. My hands, I noticed, were shaking, a lot. But it was just technical failure, of course. How could it be anything else? I kept telling myself that as I stumbled towards the main server room, the hum of the air circulation system suddenly audible, pressing in on my skull. Just another malfunction. The bunker was massive, complex. Things broke. Eventually, I had to focus. The server room was usually a comforting place. That deep, steady thrum of power, the rush of cooling fans, a testament to the colossal effort that kept me alive. But today, the hum felt off, different. It felt like something was straining, barely holding on. My personal wrist-mounted sensor read the room temperature at a precise 80 degrees, exactly as it should be for optimal server function. But when I reached out, hesitantly, to touch the brushed metal casing of the nearest server rack, a jolt went through me. It was ice-cold, Arctic, like touching a block of solid ice. My hand slapped back, a sharp, involuntary gasp catching in my throat. My skin felt raw, stinging. At that exact moment, the rhythmic roar of the cooling fans, the ones that kept these behemoths from melting down, began to falter. They slowed, visibly. The deep whoosh became a high-pitched metallic whine, like something grinding itself apart. The whine grew thinner, weaker, a dying shriek. Then, silence. Absolute, crushing silence. The kind of silence that pulsed with its own sound, a silent scream. My eyes darted to the main diagnostic screen, now eerily bright in the quiet room. In stark, luminous green letters, it blinked. Core temperature optimal. Optimal. But it was cold, and the fans, God, they were silent. Everything was wrong. My reflection in the dark, still screen was a study in pure dread. My face was pale, drawn, eyes wide, dark shadows under them like smudges of dirt. My jaw was clenched so hard my teeth ached. A serious malfunction, I said, the words barely a whisper, thin and reedy. That's all it is. The sensors are failing. The data is, it's compromised. But the coldness on my hand, the chilling silence of the fans, that wasn't compromised. That was real. My shirt was clinging to my back now, damp with cold sweat. It was just a freak incident. Yeah, that's it. My bunker, it was still perfect. It had to be. I tried to sleep later, but it was just a joke, a cruel mockery of rest. My eyes burned, tearing with fatigue, yet every nerve in my body was screaming, alive with an almost unbearable tension. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, every shadow playing tricks. And then the lights in the room, the soft, diffused LEDs, began to flicker. Not a normal flicker, not a circuit diagram.